Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian. I'm his son, Jeff Kurkjian, for our Thursday episode of the week. Dad, there's a lot going on. Thank you to everybody who listened to our friend Steve Russian yesterday on the feed. If you missed it, he's going to make you laugh. We talked a lot about Pope Leo.
Jeff, anytime you can get Wayne Nordhagen and Richie Zisk into a podcast in 2025, that's a victory. I don't care if you don't know who those guys are. The way Steve Russian presented it makes it funny whether you know who they are or not. And of course I do, because I was covering baseball back then.
Fantastic. So make sure you listen on the feed right now. It's the previous episode. Thank you so much again. Two-time guest now, our friend Steve Russian. Amazing. Now, Dad, before we jump into takeaways and Quirkjians and Team Tim, we have a lot of great stuff planned for you today. The big news story coming out of Major League Baseball was an announcement made on Tuesday night, which was about Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, among many others, have been taken off Major League Baseball's banned list. This is a huge story, obviously.
Yes, it is. And I got a text message from a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, grew up in Ohio, huge Reds fan. And he wrote to me, my prayers have been answered. Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And there are a lot of people out there who feel exactly the same way, especially those who grew up around the Reds and all. But there are also a lot of people who feel kind of the exact opposite of that. But the one thing we have to make clear here, Jeff, is that Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame. He's going to get a chance, likely, to go on a special Hall of Fame committee ballot. And I've been on those committees, Jeff, 4 different times. It is a fascinating process. There's 16 people in the room. And the years that I did it, there were 8 former players, like 4 executives, and 4 writers/historians. So it was an eclectic mix of people. And the mix is the most important thing. The mix will determine whether Pete Rose gets into the Hall of Fame on that ballot. And of course, Jeff, you have to get 12 out of 16 votes, 75% in order to get in. And let's not forget, Jeff, and this is important, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds went on this special committee ballot, and they got fewer than 4 votes for the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
After getting in their 10th and final year on the writer's ballot, 65 and 66% of the vote. The point is, former players look at steroid users in a more harsh way than maybe even the writers do. And I think everyone needs to be prepared that if there are indeed 8 former players on the committee, they may look at Pete Rose's violations, number one being he bet on baseball, as something to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. So this point that Pete Rose is now in the Hall of Fame or a slam dunk that he's going to get in, I'm not so sure about that.
So we'll have to be on the lookout, but this big news is incredible. Can I ask, you said not so sure about that Shoeless Joe Jackson, though. I mean, that was over 100 years ago. Do you think he has a chance on this special ballot?
Well, I think he's going to get strong consideration. And the question is he going to be on the ballot? My guess is he will. But back to Pete for just a second, Jeff. 20 years ago, I went on TV on ESPN and said, I would vote for Pete Rose if he were on the Hall of Fame ballot. And Frank Robinson, who I had a tremendous relationship with, came up to me and started screaming at me. He said, I can't believe that you said you would vote for that guy for the Hall of Fame. He said he violated the number one rule in baseball. You do not bet on baseball, period. That's it. And he said, if Pete Rose ever gets in the Hall of Fame, I will never go back to the Hall of Fame for any reason, because I will not want to be in the same club as him. And again, Pete and Frank Robinson were teammates with the Reds. The point of this, Jeff, is just to tell you that former players have a slightly different look at this than the average fan does, certainly. So this is a story that is very, very difficult to put together. And we're going to have to go through 2 years of this now, because that ballot is going to be December of 2027 before we get a vote on Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson. So this is difficult stuff, Jeff, and that's the way it works.
All right, Dad. So now that we've got that out of the way and we've discussed that big news, let's go right into the takeaways of what's going on in Major League Baseball.
Just a couple of them. The Tigers, as you know, have the best record in the American League, and one reason is Javi Baez. Last year, Javi Baez hit 184 with an OPS of 516. He used to be a really good player, Jeff, and then his career completely derailed, and now it appears he is making a comeback, because this year he's hitting 319 with an 870 OPS, and on Tuesday night he hit 2 3-run homers, including a walk-off to beat the Red Sox. This is why baseball is so great, Jeff. This guy used to be such a good player and then kind of disappeared, but now he seems to be back, and he's playing center field every day instead of shortstop. So this is why baseball is so beautiful. The light goes on, the light goes off. There's no telling when, but it looks like he has had a rejuvenation of his career. And I love to see things like that. And it has really, really helped the Tigers. And yes,
I think it just speaks to the difficulty of this game, Dad.
Of course,
that's what
Jeff.
it comes down to. Is sometimes the best players can have a great year and then kind of fade into obscurity,
and
right
then
after a
come
great
back
season.
Again, I mean, it's amazing how difficult this game is to play. I try to tell people that, and I'm not sure everyone's listening, but it's the one thing that I will never, ever forget. This is the hardest game in the world to play.
Also, don't worry, I'm listening,
right,
Dad. I'm always listening.
Tuesday night, Jeff, I have nothing else to do. I only have one TV in my house, in our house, that I can really trust on how to find all the channels, because there's still 3 televisions in our house that I don't know how to operate, okay? Because poor Pop-Up is 68 years old, and he just doesn't understand stuff. You understand that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so I was watching Tuesday night, and we had 3 walk-offs in a 5-minute span. So I'm jumping from game to game, looking for games that are in the 9th inning. And, of course, Javi Baez, who we said, Isaac Paredes hit a walk-off homer for the Astros, and Justin Turner, the oldest position player in the major leagues, hit a walk-off for the Cubs. 3 walk-offs in a 5-minute span. This is the point, Jeff. If you're really watching closely enough, no matter what night of the week it is, something crazy might happen. And I'm sure this has happened before, but 3 walk-offs in a 5-minute span, and I got to see all 3 of them. My timing was perfect. It was incredible.
Yeah, and listen, with your MLB package, flipping through those games, let's just say I'm very jealous that I couldn't do that.
Jeff, it's a great deal, and I would be dead without it, because I'm watching constantly in here.
Well, you'd be dead with that or without your Sirius XM in the car.
Right.
You've already said how it's greatest invention
ever. Sirius XM radio. I can listen to games on my 6-hour ride to ESPN, or I can sit up here and watch 15 games a night.
All right, Dad, my favorite part of the show on Tuesdays or Thursdays is the Quirkjians. So what do you have this week?
All right, well, we're going back to Javi Baez, because he knocked in 6 runs out of the number 9 spot. So he is the 6th number 9 hitter this season to have 5 or more RBIs in a game. That is, of course, a record before we get to June in Major League history. And let's see if you remember even one of the other guys who drove in at least 5 runs out of the number 9 spot this year. And I'm telling you, there's one special name on there.
Oh, Carson Kelly. That's
Kelly.
Easy, Dad.
Right.
That's the one I remember and always will,
right,
because your daughter Kelly had a son named Carson.
Right. Absolutely. And he hit for the cycle out of the number 9 spot. All right, Jeff, you know how much I love names. And I know this fascinates only me, but the Nationals the other night, and this is several nights now, they'll start 10 players, including starting pitcher, and 6 of them have 4 letters in their last name. You find that odd at all? In fact, 4 of them hit in a row in order the other day: Alex Call, James Wood, Nathaniel Lowe, and Josh Bell. So we had 4 straight guys with 4 letters in their last name. And, we had the 4x4 list recently, right? On May the 4th or April the 4th, 4-4,
That's
right?
right.
And if you call Nathaniel Lowe Nate Lowe, 3 out of those 4 are 4x4 guys hitting straight in a row for the Nationals. Is that really stupid? And you could say yes.
I think your fascination with the
That's a
small
yes.
amount of letters.
Right.
Yeah. That's a yes. My pregnant pause, I think speaks volumes to, a little bit.
All right, Jeff. Steve Sparks, our guest of a few weeks ago, who is trying to gain entrance into the Seamhead Club when
He's already in.
He's an honorary member. This is the text he sent me the other day. He sent me a text about all the Gold Glove winners, and he said the one last name that has 4 different names of Gold Glove winners is the name White. Frank White, Devon White, Bill White, and Evan White. So there are others, Pena and all sorts of other names that have 3 Gold Glovers. He looked this up. A former player took the time to look this up. How can he even ask if he can get in the Seamhead Club? He is one of the captains of the team.
Well, when we had him on the show, you basically crowned him with seam-headedness, and he was honored. I thought he almost was going to go into tears.
Right. And we have I Am a Seamhead coming up later. And last thing for the Quirkjians, Jeff, and again, these things tickle me more than most, but Jake Berger is back in the big leagues, thank goodness, with the Rangers, and he played the other night against the Rockies. So we had Nick Martini in that game. So we had a Berger Martini playing in the same game against each other. Okay. I'm 68 years old, Jeff, and I've had a burger before, but I've never had a martini. I don't even know what a martini is. Seriously, I know there's an olive in it, but what goes into making a martini? Do you know?
Have you ever seen James Bond, Dad?
Yes, I've seen it. I'm asking. I know what it looks like. I don't know what it tastes like because I've never had one. And I'd like for you to tell me what's in a martini since I don't know.
I think it can be either gin or vodka. I'm not a martini drinker. I've had one before. So your choice is gin or vodka, and then I think it's just vermouth at that point.
Right. All right, last question, Jeff. What is in a hamburger? Because when you were a kid, I'm not sure you even remember this, you were such a picky eater as a 5-year-old or so. We would go to McDonald's, and you would order a hamburger without the hamburger. So you would just order a bun with mustard, pickles, and ketchup on it. And what did you call that contraption? Which was
called a hangover.
It was a hangover because you couldn't even say hamburger. So we used to order a hangover. Believe me, it's never happened at McDonald's ever that somebody has ordered a hamburger. Hold the hamburger. Just give me the bun, the mustard, the pickle, and the ketchup. Only you would order that, Jeff.
Dad, I have a Quirkjian.
Great.
My buddy John Gay, regular listener of the podcast, also is a podcast consultant on the side. So check out Jag in Detroit if you're looking for any sort of consulting with your podcast. He sent me this tweet that was from an account called Not Gotti. It says, there's only been 2 games in the entirety of Major League Baseball history wherein a pitcher went exactly 2.1 innings, allowed exactly 12 base runners, and surrendered exactly 11 runs. It's only happened twice. Both of them are Tanner Houck this season.
Is that right? That's amazing. Tanner Houck is the first Red Sox ever to give up 11 or more earned runs in a start in the same season. And the last 2 guys to do that in any season are Brandon Backey and Jason Marquis of the last 15 to 20 years. So I know exactly what he's talking about, but I was unaware that it was 11 earned runs and 2 1/3 when you narrow it down to that. If that's indeed true, that is really cool. And again, I really worry about people who are starting to look up this kind of stuff because it's seductive. Once it grabs you, you can't look at a box score and not ask, like, when's the last time that happened? I do that every day of my life.
What's going on this date in baseball history?
All right, it's George Brett's birthday today, born in 1953. Let's make sure it's clear. George Brett to me, is one of the 3 greatest third basemen of all time. George Brett's one of the greatest hitters I've ever seen. Won a batting title, Jeff, in 3 different decades. And I've told you a bunch of George Brett funny stories, but I'll just tell you that someone asked him once, what do you want your last at bat in the big leagues to look like? And he said, I want to hit a really hard ground ball to the second baseman. And I want to run as hard as I can to first base, just so everyone on my team and everyone in the stands recognizes this is how you play the game. You never loaf to first base. George Brett ran hard to first base every single time I saw him play. Good lesson there, Jeff, for young people. Also born on this date, another Hall of Famer, John Smoltz, who was on our podcast last year talking about golf. Jeff, let's see if you can remember how many holes in one John Smoltz had.
5?
11.
Oh my gosh.
And he told us number 11, he thought nothing could ever top number 10 because number 10 came on a par 4. Okay. So number 11, he's playing in a group. 17, the entire match is riding on the 17th hole, a par 3. So John and his partner are playing against 2 other guys who hit it 3 and 4 feet from the hole. Okay, it's best ball. So one of them is going to make a birdie. Now John Smoltz steps up and hits it in the hole for his 11th hole in one, and he wins the match on 17 with a hole in one. I mean, that could only happen to John Smoltz.
I have another birthday on today, May 15th.
Yes.
You brought up John Smoltz, former guest of the show.
Right.
Another guest of ours. It's his birthday today, Dan Patrick.
Hey, really?
Dan Patrick's birthday today, and you referenced him on the show on Tuesday, Dad,
right?
Because we were talking about the all-Pope team, and you talked about Jesus Alou, who was Dan Patrick's favorite player growing up because he would always call him Jesus. And then his dad would have to tell him, no, Jesus is the guy we talk about on Sundays. Jesus is the player. Well, are we talking about Jesus or Jesus?
Right.
So happy birthday to Dan Patrick.
Right. And happy birthday to AJ Hinch, the manager of the Tigers, born in 1974, Jeff. The only manager in Major League history that has gone by his initials, AJ Hinch. No one else in the Major Leagues has ever managed a team in the Major Leagues and gone by his initials. And by the way, Joey Cora, one of the coaches for the Tigers, told me in the postseason last year, AJ Hinch is the best strategist I've ever seen in my life as a manager. And Joey played a long time. He's been a coach. He's been around a lot of people. And Alex Cora, a great strategist, is Joey's brother, and he still puts AJ Hinch ahead of him. So just let's make sure we understand. The Tigers will never be outfoxed or outprepared in a game because AJ Hinch and his coaching staff got this covered. Also, 1941 on this date, Joe DiMaggio started his 56-game hitting streak, Jeff, which will never be approached. Remember, Pete Rose, who we mentioned earlier, hitting 44 straight games. It was an amazing accomplishment, and he was still a hit every day for 2 weeks, short of Joe DiMaggio. You get that, right?
It's one of those records, I think, along with Cal Ripken, that's just never going to be touched.
It's never going to be broken. It's too hard to get hit. And in those 56 straight games, Jeff, he struck out 5 times. And I believe no times in the final 32 games of a 56-game hitting streak. How amazing is that?
That's crazy.
Right. And last thing, Nolan Ryan on this date, 1973, pitched a no-hitter, his first of 7 no-hitters, a record. Nolan Ryan, of course, is the greatest power pitcher of all time, the hardest pitcher to hit, all-time strikeout king, and one of the most beloved people ever to play the game. Unless, of course, you dug in against him and showed him up on the mound, then he would buzz the tower as quick as anybody.
We have a lot coming your way on Is This a Great Game or What? We've got a best of all Tim, which will be the best player to play for the Tampa Bay Rays. So we'll dive into that. Ozzie to Oral, the best players at 15 and 16 on their backs. I am a seam head, and then a little special Team Tim for us. All coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? All right, Dad, best of all, Tim, the Tampa Bay Rays today. Who is the best player to play for the Tampa Bay Rays?
This is a huge debate. It's either Carl Crawford or Evan Longoria, but I'm going with Evan Longoria, and he just signed a one-year deal this week with the Rays so he could retire as a Ray because he's retired. Cool. Now, he played 10 years for the Rays, had an 823 OPS, hit 270, hit 261 homers, great defensive third baseman, and he basically put the Rays on the map. They started to win when he showed up. Carl Crawford's numbers are probably better across the board, but Evan Longoria, to me, is the greatest Ray ever. And I love this more than I should, Jeff. But he told me once that he went to like a concert or a play. And you know when you get on your credit card statement, like when you go in, like you go into an event, sometimes they cut off your first name is only 3 letters, which would be no problem. It would be Tim if it were me. But for him, they cut off the last letter. So he went to that concert with a ticket that said Eva Longoria, which she, of course, is one of the most beautiful women ever and a famous actress and everything. So he told me that people somehow found this out and they saw tickets and said, oh, my God, Eva Longoria is here, and they went right to his seat, and it wasn't her because it was him because they cut the N off of his name. I don't know why I got such a big kick out of that, but Evan Longoria is the best Tampa Bay Ray ever in a huge debate, but that's who I'm going with.
Dad, you watched a little bit of Desperate Housewives with Mom back in the day, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember, I miss those days of cable television. I know there's still shows coming out on cable, but remember how excited you would get when a show, like it would be Thursday, like our whole family, we watched Lost, we watched 24. You remember? I miss those days.
Jeff,
it's just
not the same. I miss those days where I knew how to work the television because we have these smart TVs in our house, and I'm so stupid. I don't even know how to use them. No, Dad, it's an internet TV. What does that mean? I just want to turn on and know where the channel is and hit channel up or channel down. It doesn't work that way at several TVs in our house.
You have never been more relatable than you are right now, and I mean that as a compliment. Even I, at age 31, Dad, you can never operate another man's television. Right. You just don't know how it works.
In fact, last time I visited your house, you went to bed. I tried to work the TV for like 20 minutes. Did not even come close to getting anything on your television other than some menu that I couldn't comprehend. It was so bad.
Yeah, you ended up on the Nature Channel, didn't you, or something like that?
It was bad. All right.
Dad, from Ozzy to Oral, we've been lining up every single number 1 through 55. Ozzie Smith, 55 being Oral Hershiser. We're now on number 15. Who's the best player of all time to wear number 15?
Again, another really tricky one, and I'm interested in what our listeners and our viewers have to say about this, but I'm going with Carlos Beltran, and I'm putting him in ahead of Dick Allen, Jim Edmonds, Dustin Pedroia. It's a pretty darn good list, which we will list the all number 15 at the end of the show today. But I'm going with Beltran based on career value. 279 hitter, 435 homers, 312 stolen bases, OPS of 837, Jeff. And one of the greatest postseason players that I have ever seen. His postseason OPS is 1.021. So based on that, I'm putting Carlos Beltran as the greatest number 15 ever. If anyone has an argument, please make your argument. I understand there are about 5 candidates for this, but I'm going with Beltran.
Well, I mean, he's known as the new Mr. October, so it kind of makes sense.
In his prime, it was absurd. It was like watching Mickey Mantle in his prime when he was tearing it up, especially for the Houston Astros in the postseason.
What about number 16? Who's the greatest player to wear that number?
All right, this is easy for me. Whitey Ford, of course, won 236 games for the Yankees, 2.75 ERA, and a winning percentage of 690. He is the only pitcher in the history of baseball, Jeff, that won that many games with an ERA that low, with a winning percentage that high. That's how good Whitey Ford was. And he won 10 World Series games all by himself. Jeff, there are a lot of teams, there are a lot of franchises that have never won 10 World Series games. That's how many Whitey Ford won by himself. The chairman of the board is what they called him. And down the street, Jeff, when I was growing up, Mr. Lynch used to live down the street. Loved Mr. Lynch. And when he was in the Army or Navy, when he was in the Navy, I believe, he caught Whitey Ford like on the side in order to keep Whitey's arm. So Mr. Lynch caught Whitey Ford. And I once asked him, Mr. Lynch, what was that like? And he said, Tim, it's unbelievable. He said, I would just set up my catcher's mitt wherever I wanted to, and he would hit it every single time. He said it was like the most amazing thing he's ever seen. That's Whitey Ford for you.
And I mean, when you consider the military service as well,
Right.
I mean, I know it's so hard because you look at like Ted Williams, and he would have had 700 homers if he hadn't served in the war, right? So that's always something to consider when going through these players is those who have served. I am a seam head, Dad. This is one of our new segments this season where you can send me a voice memo. Email me, jeff@greatgamerwhat.com. You can just record it on your phone, then hit email, jeff@greatgamerwhat.com, and explain to us why you are a seam head. Shouting out this week, Ryan Bauer. So Ryan left us a voice memo about an insane game that he attended with his dad. So you're going to hear that. But also, it was a little unclear in the voice memo what exactly he was trying to explain, but I want to make sure everybody understands just how much of a seamhead him and his coworker are, Dad. They put together a list, and he sent me the spreadsheet of the players that have the largest year differential playing for the same team for one season. So that means basically veteran and rookie crossover. And the highest year differential would be 52 seasons. And I'm going to quiz you, Dad, see if you know which two players played at least one season together, but then a total of 52 years they played Major League Baseball. Am I explaining this properly?
I got
you caught
it.
up?
And I just love that two coworkers would spend their time on something like this. Okay, I need a clue, Jeff. I need a year. I need a team and a year.
We'll start with the Chicago White Sox. So
Who
before
are
I
very
go
much in the news with Pope Leo and everything else, right?
big time.
Right.
I mean, if Pope Leo is 69, that means he was born in probably 55. So he very much knows these guys.
Right.
I'm not going to give you too much of a clue, Dad. Just who's a guy who played for the White Sox who played an obscene amount of time of Major League Baseball?
Well, Minnie Minoso played until he was like 100. He didn't play full time, but so it has to be Minnie Minoso.
You got it right.
And so that was 1980?
Yeah, he ended in 1980. He made his debut in 1949. So he technically played in 4 decades: the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, five, and the 80s.
Okay,
that's unbelievable. He crossed paths with a 21-year Major League Baseball veteran
who was on the 80 White Sox.
He was on the 80 White Sox. He was a rookie. He started his career for the White Sox. Can you take a guess?
That's Harold Baines.
Harold Baines is correct, my friend.
All right. I'm so glad.
52-year differential, Dad. The next being 51-year differential for the then Cleveland Indians. That would be Tommy John and crossover with Early Wynn.
Wow. That is so great. I love stuff like that.
Also, you need to do a all-winning team. You did the crappy names for a pitcher.
Right.
You need to do a positive names for pitchers and batters because Early Win.
Right. Early Win Remerswall. Yes, I can do that, Jeff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I have nothing else to do. So those are the things I do.
And I want to pay attention to one he put up, which I believe is 47 years which would be the crossover. This one just blows my mind. Making his debut, 1966, played until 1993. It was Nolan Ryan crossing over with Jamie Moyer.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
For 47 years. So let's throw it over to our seam head today. It's Ryan Bauer to explain that game with his dad and a little bit more about his seam headedness.
My story goes like this. I called my dad on a Tuesday and asked him if he wanted to go to that night's Braves game, since Randy Johnson was pitching for the Diamondbacks. My dad taught me to keep score of games as a child, and I decided I wanted to do that as a 24-year-old. I enjoyed that, but I looked down at my scorecard in the 6th and said, wow, Randy Johnson is pitching a no-hit, a perfect game. That night, Randy was perfect. My dad is thankfully still with us, but that will go down as one of my favorite memories with him, and only a game like baseball could have that impact. Additionally, a coworker and I put together a game to see what two players' careers could span together the longest. Jeff may have referenced it, but only a game like baseball could do that. My name is Ryan Bauer, and I am a seam head.
See, I wanted to go into a little more detail than he was able to because I tell people, try to keep your messages short, and he did just that. So, Ryan, you are, and your coworker, are seam heads
and
for sure.
Thank you for your contribution, Ryan. I really appreciate it, and I just love anyone that would look at your coworker and in a downtime say, let's look this up. This is what separates baseball from a lot of other sports, maybe all other sports.
You know, I need to ask Ryan what he does for a living because I'm not surprised that that happens at ESPN with your, and I mean this respectfully, nerdy other seam head friends like yourself, like those of Mark Simon and these guys who love the game as much as you do. But, I mean, I would love to hear that he works at a pharmaceutical company or something.
Who knows? Who knows?
All right, Dad. So you have a Team Tim planned for us based upon today's date, right?
Right. Well, it's May the 15th, and today we had Carlos Beltran as the number 115 of all time. Very debatable. So I came up with the all 15 team. Catcher Thurman Munson, also in the discussion for the greatest 15 ever. Thurman Munson won an MVP, one of the great players, one of the great catchers we've ever seen. Life cut short, as we know. Dick Allen, Hall of Famer, is our first baseman. Dustin Pedroia, second base. Larry Parrish, who I covered all those years with the Rangers, is the third baseman. O'Neill Cruz is the shortstop, even though he's been moved to center field this year by the Pirates. We said Carlos Beltran. Jim Edmonds, also in the conversation. Tim Salmon, who holds the record, my friend Craig Wright told me, for the longest career wearing only one number. Tim Salmon wore number 15 for his entire career. Among the 15s, Jeff, okay?
Oh, okay.
Just among the 15s, all right? So he never wore another number other than 15. And tell me about Tim Salmon, what you know about him relating to your wife, Emily. Tim Salmon went to
Grand Canyon University.
That's right.
I was going to say, my wife has very little in common when it comes to baseball players, but there it is.
There it is. George Foster, number 15, is our designated hitter. He had 52 home runs one season. He was a great home run hitter. Tim Hudson, number 15. Doug Drabeck, former Cy Young winner, number 15. So that's my 15 on May the 15th. All 15 teams.
I love that. Dad, this is...
And last thing, Jeff, before we go, we don't have a show on May the 17th, which is this week is a Saturday. But since we've been talking so much about the White Sox with Harold Baines and Minnie Minoso and Pope Leo and, you know, all this, we have to mention that Saturday is Carlos May's birthday. Carlos May wore number 17 when he played for the White Sox. And his birthday is on May 17. So what is that optic for you, Jeff?
Well, his jersey on the back would say May, his last name, and 17, which is his birthday.
So Carlos May had his name, his number, and his birthday on his back. This is why baseball is so beautiful, is there are tiny little ridiculous fun stories like that wherever you look.
Well, the most ridiculous thing was he was traded to the Yankees, but they don't put their last names on. So that's pretty ridiculous that they just have to do it just for him.
Right. I agree. And I've never understood that with the Yankees, but they're the Yankees, pinstripes, respect, all this stuff. It's all about the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. But I'm with you on that.
No facial hair. Oh, wait.
No.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
Oh, wait. All right, Dad. Well, this was fun. We got 3 episodes a week, every single week. We've got 3 more, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, coming up next week. I can't thank you enough for all the support. We constantly are getting tweets and emails and texts and stuff. It really has been a dream come true to do this show. And the fact that people are there with us, Dad, every single day is really special. So glad that you could be listening today. Hope you enjoy your weekend. And as always, thank you for being a part of our family.